Hello everybody, welcome to the Saturday Morning D&D show. My name is Jordan, the PH is silent, and I am joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian. Say hello, sir.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Saturday morning.
Yeah, and this is going to be a fun one, but, well, I say that, and I didn't play D&D for an entire week, so I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. But an update from me, I wasn't here last week because a family member was sick in the hospital, and me and my wife had to drive down and basically stay with her for a little bit. My wife is still down there, so any thoughts or prayers or any happy feelings you want to send my way is good. Our family member is doing better, but is not out of the woods yet. So they're going to be in the hospital for probably another 3 days, maybe a week. We'll see. But yeah, and that's about all I really wanted to say about that. So no need to super worry or anything, but any happy thoughts are always encouraging. So thank you guys. And thanks for all the tweets and messages that you guys kind of sent out. It was really nice of you guys to be supportive like that. But onwards to Dungeons and Dragons. We've got some people in the chat. This is really awesome. So thank you guys so much for coming out in the morning and hanging out with us. I can talk about my games a couple weeks ago, but is there any D&D news we need to cover, Lucian? Or
Yeah, I was thinking about that last night as I was getting the show notes going, and it's funny because you're having what I had last week. Like, I didn't play any D&D the week before that, so I had to come into the morning show and say, oh, I didn't play anything, but what was going on. So I'll be curious to see how yours went too. But I was thinking about news. I was like, what's going on? So I looked up Mordenkainen's tome because I thought, man, shouldn't that be out yet? Shouldn't I be going down to the game store to collect that? And it looks like it's next month. We've got a full month yet before Mordenkainen's tome comes out. Mike Mearls has been doing his happy hour. He did a Barbarian Marauder 2-weapon fighter, which really was on point for me because I'm playing a 2-weapon build Barbarian in my Tuesday night game. So that was interesting to listen to him and how he was doing that. But they haven't really come out with too much.
There was Unearthed Arcana that came out, which was based off of one of his Happy Fun Hour character creation things. Not characters, but classes, yeah.
Yeah, he's doing subclasses, which is fun. Yep, so there's some testing for that. But it hasn't been a lot coming from them. Yeah. It hasn't been a lot of stuff. I think they've done their full push to get the book ready to go, and then now they're just doing regular stuff. And I thought the one other thing that was interesting that I saw, there's the game that's Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms that you can get up on Steam, and they've been doing that. Last week, you could have picked up Strix as a character, and this week they have a gift that you can pick up. And the storyline of that game for this quest is a astral barge lands near Tribor. And that immediately made me jump to think about your idea about you've been wanting to kind of get your group to Spell Jam coming up. And I just thought, there was a very on point. And with Mordenkainen's tome coming out, I think you're going to have plenty of monsters and plenty of creatures to be able to run kind of that if you want to take it.
Yeah, that book is coming out. Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes is coming out exactly when I need it because my players are reaching 10th level soon. And I'm going to need some higher tier monsters. And all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we're going to have a bunch of higher tier monsters in here. And with the Gith and other, the Gith Yankee and the Gith Zerai, Mind Flayers and all this, I don't know, that it's going to be great. It's going to be exactly what I need at the right time. So thank you, Wizards of the Coast, for being so on point with my games. So
yeah. Keep watching our show and keep bringing us books we need when we need them.
Exactly.
So there was no news, I thought. So I think it was just we were just going to jump into what we did in D&D and then just whatever discussion takes us wherever we go.
Yeah. So what did you do in D&D this week? You had nothing last week, which great. By the way, thank you for running the show by yourself. And I did watch it on my phone, and you did a great job. So thank you.
Yeah. It was interesting just to be able to talk. I always like the back and forth better because we can come up with good points of views and good stuff. But I knew we definitely have an audience that wants to come out, and really chat made it good, I think, because they asked a lot of good questions and kept us going. So it was pretty good.
No, me doing this by myself, I'm like, I'm not interesting by myself. I need people to talk to. I've tried live streaming. If anybody's gone to my Twitch channel, it's just me staring at the monitor being like, so what do I say? How do I be funny?
Yeah.
You guys are
I
great.
need a better funny hat collection if I'm going to try that too much. So I've got to play Dungeons & Dragons Adventure League online with Anarsis,
Right.
PB, and Nomadic. Those guys are super good. It's fun to play with them. It's always fun to be in a group that you really like and enjoy. The characters are fun. We had a lot of combat in the jungle, a lot of random roll stuff because he's kind of following the way the module goes. So not necessarily connected in any way, but we're getting a lot of XP because we're just burning through lots of encounters, which is nice. We did have an NPC die on us, so this next Tuesday night game, I think it's gonna be a little more somber tone as we have to deal with one of our NPCs that gave us a quest has died in the jungle with us. So now I have no idea what's gonna happen with that.
Goodness.
So that was terrible, but it's still fun to play. I'm liking the Barbarian. It's a 2-weapon build. It's coming into its own. It's doing great damage. It's a little min-maxed because I went, variant human to get the feet off the beginning, and because I wanted to see if I could build a really high-powered 2-weapon wielder, so 2 long swords and extra damage and rage damage is on top of that, and that whole bit. So it's been fun.
So you took
I really
2-weapon fighting as your feat?
Yeah, 2-weapon. Because I wanted to be able to use martial weapons instead of just a light finesse weapon in my offhand, so I could get the damage die roll up. And then I also went Path of the Zealot, which gives me another 1d6 plus half my level on the first melee attack I hit. So it's a long sword, big hit, rage damage, Path of the Zealot hit, die roll my second attack off my offhand, and so I'm doing 20-30 points of damage at a 3rd level character, just really getting going.
Nice.
So it's pretty fun. I think it's going to ramp up as I go, so it's definitely been fun. And I like the visual. I like the visual of the guy with the 2 swords, or the sword and the axe, and he's whirling around. So when I describe it in combat, it's like I'm sliding across the ground and hitting people in the back, or I'm vaulting over. I'm trying to make them very fluid and very fast moving and hitting things all over, just in my mind, in my own mind space. So it's been pretty fun. So that's a good character. Adventure League wise, it's still fun. It still plays like everything else so far. I don't feel like I'm having the same Adventure League experience you're having.
Oh, yeah, not
going
at all.
to the game
You're probably
store
having a better one.
Maybe. Well, it feels like a normal game.
Yeah.
It does, because I'm not jumping from group to group and from DM to DM. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. I don't say that there's one way that's better or the other, but I think it's a very different experience. So if you've been thinking, I don't want to change DMs all the time, so I'm never going to play Adventure League, that's not the only way you can play Adventure League. You can play Adventure League with the same DM, the same party, all the way through. There's lots of ways to do
and
that.
I think that's what Wizards of the Coast wants to happen. It's just schedules and stuff. Like, I know there are 2 DMs that are really good at showing up for Adventure League. Unfortunately, their groups are already full. And so when I show up, it's been like, well, we've already been playing for, 5 or 6 months with this guy and these people. And so I show up and they're just like, oh, here's another random DM, but he's not going to be there next week, but he'll be there in 3 weeks. And so I've been bouncing around from table to table, and my entire group has. There's been like 3 or 4 of us that were just kind of like, oh, where do we go? What do we do? So
yeah,
I was curious how Anaris hands out experience points, though. Does he add up the monsters you kill, or do you get experience from also completing quests?
We haven't completed any quests yet, so I don't know about that. It has been monsters we engage. So if 1 or 2 run off, we still get that.
Okay.
Treasure is handed out doing the Adventure League rules. So it's very specific how the treasure is. You don't even have to worry about searching bodies typically. They just give you a set amount depending on what CR they are. And then I think he only gives us the XP when we've done I want to say it's a long rest. Yeah. So if you do a long rest somewhere, then that can actually come out, and I'm getting pretty close to 4th level already because of that session. Okay. We burned through a lot of high level stuff, and in one session we went from 3 to maybe like 3.8 for me, and I'm doing Meat Grinder. So I don't know if you were doing that for your character. Yeah, I'm doing the extra 10% for money and XP. But I have to roll a high 15 or higher on death saves if it happens. So I'm going for broke.
That's the way to do it. They brought up that when I started my character, but because we weren't playing the official Chult Tomb of Annihilation campaign. He was like, I don't really want to let you do that. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I was like, I'll totally take an extra 10% experience points. That sounds great.
Every time.
Yeah, I'll make a new character. I don't care. Although I'm getting really attached to my bard, and I don't want him to die.
Yeah. Oh, and here's the other cool thing about Adventure League. You can make a change up until 5th level on anything except your name. So like even if because I thought about maybe I'll go back and change my feat and rework this build to do it a different way. Because then I could do like Path of the Storm Herald, and I could go kind of a different direction. And I thought about it, which is cool. You don't get that in the campaign you play with me. Like, you know, your cleric is your cleric, and when you're playing it in my game, it's just like it doesn't. Oh, I'm suddenly a bard, or I'm suddenly I want to play sorcerer today. So Adventure League is really good if you want to try some things out, get a feel for them, but change them around a little bit before you're set at 5th level and say, okay, I finally kind of know where I want this character to go and move.
I've already been doing that, cool. But not just with my spells. Like I'll try out a couple spells and I'm like, you know what, this isn't working how I thought it was, so I'm gonna go home and I just like change it up because I'm only level 3, so I can still do that, which is really nice.
Yeah, so pretty cool. So I'm still in on it. I like the idea of Adventure League. I think it feels like they're about to make big changes to it. It feels like this is the next big thing they want to tackle. And because they designed it 5 years ago, it's still running the same way they
Adventure
thought
League as
it
a
would
whole,
run.
or just the adventure you're playing?
I think the Adventure League itself. I think they want to start putting in some different ways to do it, or like re-look at it from. Because Mike Merle said, you know, we have 5 years under our belt now of the system. We can go back and really have a better understanding of what we were thinking about when we just put it out there and we didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And because they also put out a survey about answering questions about what do you like, what would you like to see, what's missing type thing. And that just gave me this feeling that they're really taking a look at their living campaign. Because really that's what it is, right? It's the idea of the living campaign. Yeah. It's what are the things you have to mark off? How do we let characters drop in and out? How is it easy to play at a convention? How can any DM do it? How can it be structured that one character can move from one to the other? And how do we keep track of all that? That's really what it's supposed to be. And make it a compelling living campaign story that people can dive into.
Right.
So I think, you know, I hope they look at it and say, is this the only way to do it? Or can we improve this? Can we innovate on it and see another? Because live campaign's really cool. Jim Murphy was talking about it in his videos that, you know, DMs working together collaboratively on a world can be very rewarding because you have so many more creative minds helping build and fill out a world.
Yeah.
And if they're working together, they can make a really in-depth thing. But we don't see that as much at the moment because I think so many new people are getting in. They're playing standard run-of-the-mill adventure stuff, you know, so but it's good. It's, you know, it's fun.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. So
that was a lot on adventure.
It would be interesting because I think when D&D started, when it was D&D Next, 5th edition started, they had that living world where the play test was changing the world and kind of they would get the results of all the play tests, like who defeated what and which factions were the most prominent, and then those factions were going to change and grow and stuff. And that's really cool to kind of involve the community like that. But yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, that hasn't been the experience that I've had with Adventure League at all. Because I've just sat down and they're just like, well, let's run this or let's run this. And you're like, okay. So
yeah, and that doesn't seem to matter to the overall world.
No.
It's more like MMO games where we all drop into the same village. We all do the same quest. The quest is always there no matter what. You know, it's that weird static world that's pseudo-living but not. But Numenera, because with their Numenera 2 coming out, the thing they're doing is they are building in rules that you take a village to a city in your living campaign. So they're building in, not only are you campaigning your characters, but they're building in actual ways and rules and how to handle helping a village get to a city level, which is an interesting thing to tackle, and it leads into the live campaign. It talks about their test campaign that they're doing right now have adventures that happen when it's a village, when it's a small town, and then now that it's a city, and they have all the adventures there kind of up. And then there's rules on how to get from one to the other to the other. You know, how does it build up? How do you get your blacksmith going? How do you get your, you know, how does it get to how many temples come in? You know, who's funding those things? They're putting rules in to make that feel like you're in a world that's changing dynamically with the actions of your characters, heroes, and players. So I think that'd be cool to look at.
There's a Numenera 2. Sorry, we need to back up for a second.
Yeah.
Some of us didn't know that, including myself.
Yeah, it
Super
is
early?
the strangest second, because they're not calling it like second edition. It's
Right.
not just Numenera second edition. They're calling it Numenera 2. It has almost all the same rules of Numenera 1 with some changes. It's compatible with any of the material from
Okay.
Numenera 1. But they're adding some other stuff in. They've got it split into, I think it's called Destiny and something else. And one is about more character options, and one is more about building cities and building civilization out of the ninth world.
Yeah.
And all these rules that can go into that. More expansions of the worlds, all this stuff. So it's definitely, check it out. It was a little confusing when I looked at it, but they're ramping up. It's going to be at Gen Con 2 for sure, or
Okay.
Gen Con coming up. And we'll see what it's going to look like. I'm jumping on board because I love Numenera. So
Yeah.
we'll
Well,
see.
and I love systems that I can cannibalize to my D&D games. And if like this is like how you build a city or how you build a town or how that town evolves into a city, that sounds really cool to steal for your own D&D games if you want to do that. But
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
Numenera is fun too. If you want to play Numenera, I'm playing Numenera. So
Yeah. The two books are called Discovery and Destiny. That's
Okay.
what it's called. So it's Numenera Discovery, Numenera Destiny. It's considered Numenera 2. And I don't know, it looks pretty good. The artwork looks, they make a fantastic product anyways. It's Monty Cook and Cordell and all those guys, so it's pretty good.
nice.
Definitely want to talk a little bit about my super awesome Crypts of Kellamvor. Ran that adventure that came out of Dragon Plus magazine. Probably one of the funnest adventures I've run and of all the stuff I've done. Came out with a great crew, had Graybeard, and we had a friend here from town, LB Hack 'em Up, Becky. She got to play, and she had voices, and she was into it. She's a big Critter fan. That's how here's how I actually met. She on her side, just because she likes to groom dogs. So we found out, we're like, hey, come over and groom our shaggy dog. And she said something about, she had to get home to watch Critical Role. And the minute I heard that, I'm in the kitchen or whatever, my ears perk up. What? Critical Role? Dungeons and Dragons? So then we have this conversation, and then I find out she's a huge fan and she loves to role play. I'm like, I got to have you in a game. Let me set up a game that you can come play. So that linked with Indoor Gamer, who's in chat right now, Indoor Adventure. He was the subscriber from the March subscriber that said, hey, I want to do a one-shot. So he subscribed to the Twitch channel. So we set it up. So he played, she played, and Graybeard played. They all had voices. They all had funny characters. It was the Dragonborn, the Yuan-Ti, and the Kobolds. So they were kind of like the lizard team.
Yeah.
They went through it, and I thought it was a very fun adventure. 3 sessions. We had our final session. They fought a Burning Skull, which I don't know if you had your characters fight that in your campaign. Those are super fun. It's like it's like an undead that's been raised. So it's like a mage that's been raised from the dead, and it's just a floating flaming skull that has spells, and it has resistances, and it can do some big damage, and it killed a couple of NPCs, and it was really good battle for those guys. And but they completed it, and it was a nice, fun one shot. And what we'll probably do is that crew was so good that I'm probably going to put together another game where they might be featured. In fact, for the month of April, Cyberwolf subscribed. I talked to him, and he's going to be playing in a one shot with us. So
Sweet.
Cyberwolf from chat's going to get to play in I think we're going to do a D&D 5e one shot. I might do something a little different. I got some other ideas I've been wanting to play around with, but I'm going to organize that and get some players together. That's why I was asking you about your Monday, because I thought, I'll see if your Monday's over or not, because I was thinking to see if I'd schedule you or not.
Oh, yeah, no, that won't
You're
be
still
over
busy.
till May,
Yeah.
I think, is when Numenera ends. But
So, tons of fun. They wrote a really good adventure. It's a cool tie-in to Neverwinter, the MMORPG online. If you want to play that, it was cool. The adventure was set out really good. It works well in a virtual tabletop with dynamic lighting, cool dungeon delve, cool crypts. A little bit of lore from the Kellenbors, which was nice. So I definitely recommend it. It was fun to play a really tight, concise adventure like that. It makes me want to go over to Drive-Thru RPG or DM's Guild and maybe find some more to just pluck out and say, I like just this one. Let's just drop this in. Because I've been so much about making my own for the last year, and I've had all these ideas. But there's something really cool about a really nice, concise adventure to run that's not too overly complicated.
I've got one I should send you that I'm going to run in my home game that I bought from DM's Guild. And it's called Scarab of Death. And it's a murder mystery. Your players have to be detectives to solve this murder. And it just kind of fit really well with my current like deserty campaign. So when my players like reach a city, I'm going to try and have this like murder had happened and they have to hire the adventurers to discover who murdered this guy. But it's high level, and the guy did a really good job where certain spells can kind of like solve a murder almost instantly, such as like Speak with Dead, and a couple of others that's eluding me at the moment. But basically he made it in such a way that not even the person who died knows who killed him. And there's a bunch of other, so your players really have to use like deductive reasoning and kind of like figure it out themselves.
Not just speak with Dead and say, it was Jimmy that killed me.
They can't just magic their way through it, but they still can utilize these high level spells to try and get clues.
Right.
So it's really cool.
That sounds fun.
Like I'll have to send you the PDF or something or a link. It's I like it a lot, and I'm excited to run it whenever my players decide to go to town. So
yeah, I want to do a mystery adventure because I've been doing a lot of combat heavy, a lot of story driven adventure stuff, but I haven't gotten into a good Scooby-Doo adventure. I've been thinking about trying to build one, but that's a little tougher. You got to have that mind for the mystery.
I'm not terribly good at that either, but where you have to like solve the riddle and then create it backwards in order to leave like enough clues for your players and stuff. So
that'd be pretty good. So that's definitely Crypts of Kellenbor is now done, but was a fantastic show. It's up on YouTube. You can go and watch it, and those guys had a great time. I had a great time with them, so it was super fun. My Borderlands game, my Thursday night game, my pre-West Marches is getting good because there's something about this game where everything you do is based off of tying their backstory into it. Like all I'm doing, because I only have 1 hour of prep, right? This is my game where I'm telling myself this game is going to be completely ran on 1 hour of prep before the session starts. So I don't have time to set up cool, elaborate modules like storylines that I then have to try to tie them into or entice them to go and find. Like everything I'm doing is just thinking about how their characters would react, and it's all character driven. It's like interactions between the two characters or their deities, using things that I know they're interested in. Like one's always looking for old books, or one is doing all this stuff. So it's really easy to tie in so this adventure was in our last little temple run, our mage found a journal of somebody who had escaped their village and had been overrun. This person has this whole journal about how they've escaped, they've tried to hide, and eventually they die in this dungeon and they don't finish the journal. But he's got it now, and he's deciphering it as a mage using, read language spells and all this stuff. And so he came up with this cool idea that he does those kind of mind space things when his character is thinking about things, because he's hyper intelligent. He's like Dexter intelligent. He's like, all those shows where if you watch CSI or you watch those things and they do the weird camera zooms and the overlays, that's how his brain works. Or he does like the Sherlock Holmes thing where he goes into his mind space room and he's able to do all the things that Sherlock Holmes does, and then he comes back out of it consciously. So I wanted to play into that because he had just came up with it on a whim, and I was like, oh, I like it. So they're walking down a path, and I'm like, hey, you superseded over this path you're looking. You see that there's a road there through the bushes, but you see through the bushes because your mind space tells you, wait a minute, this is a place that's been described to me in detail. And he's
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, guys, there's something here. And I'm like, now you're on the road, and it looks exactly like what it describes. And he gets to the village, and they see a rundown village that's inside a cave mouth. Think of like South America, the big caves, the Incas that were building little villages inside those caves, and it was sacred places. So I wanted that kind of feeling of it. And I'm like, but you see the village as it was living, and he sees ghostly people walking by as if the description in his head is Sherlock's Holmesing the whole thing out. And the others just see the rundown thing that's been, abandoned for 100 years or whatever. So it was really cool to play into that character thing. And then I thought, well, why don't we just throw in ghosts, right? Why not? We're here. And so I threw in 5 specters, not necessarily all at once, but there was a couple in a couple of buildings that they had to fight, and a couple of more further on into the little village, and then a ghost. And for me, when I built the encounter, I thought it was a little bit of a throwaway encounter. I didn't necessarily think my players were going to have too much trouble with it, because I wanted there that they would find this village, and then I could bring in some more storyline about this village. It's a village of Darklings that had been attacked and has been destroyed by some other faction. And this is the introduction to that other faction for them to say, wait a minute, this faction came in and is taking over villages and enslaving these people. And that's the big thing that they're going to find out. What I didn't realize was how much trouble they were going to have by a ghost who could possess players. And specters who have, because both of them have resistances to just about everything. Even magic items, there's a couple in the party, but not very many at this point because they're still low level. They're only 4th level. And I possessed the great sword wielding fighter and just started hammering into one of their cleric. And then they finally got him out of that. They beat down their fighter. So he goes unconscious. The ghost pops up out of that. Then on a recharge of 1d6, you have to roll a 6. You get that ability back. So I miss it. It goes in and it's fighting. It's doing its normal stuff. I get it back again. And then I possess the cleric. And so now they're having to beat down their cleric. And it goes back and forth. And at the end of it, to me, I'm watching, how the hit points are going down. I know where everything is at. So to me, I never felt like they were in too much danger. They were breathing heavy at the end of the adventure. They had thought TPK was on the table. They were sweating it out. They were like going, oh my God, the stress. The whole time they're like, the music stresses me out. We got to get this done. They were like full on. They thought they weren't coming out of it at all. And so it was really cool that something that I didn't think was going to be a big deal turned into a major deal for them. And they had a lot of fun. I think they'll remember it, of all time, the ghost that they fought and was possessing their friends. It was really funny. So that was really good. The 1 hour prep session campaign just keeps surprising me how well it's working so far. I'm sure there's probably a version of this where you try it and it doesn't work and it doesn't come together, but this one so far has been. It's just like I don't have to prep at all, except I sit down an hour before we're about to go and I say, here's what I think they're about to do or what I could do and just see where it goes, see where it takes them. And it's been really fun.
Sweet.
So I love that one. And then we talked about the one shot that I'm already planning. So that has been my week in Dungeons and Dragons. That was quite a bit.
That was a good week.
It was fun. I feel bad because, you were at a hospital with family members.
Oh, yeah. No, it's all good. Actually, it's funny. I've got a D20 keychain on the back of my backpack, and I was reading my book with my backpack next to me, and one of the nurses came in, and she's like, "Is that a D20?" And so we were talking about D&D, and I was telling her about my channel, my YouTube channel and stuff. She's like, "That sounds really cool." And I'm like, and here you have this like 30-something nurse that is interested in Dungeons and Dragons and surprised me, I guess. And so it's kind of, you find them all over. Like there's fans everywhere. So
yeah, and it's funny too that I'm looking out for it now, like because the minute I see somebody who's courage enough or excited enough or into it enough to talk to a stranger and say, "Hey, is that a D&D reference?" in the way of saying, "Hey, I like D&D too," you kind of get the tone, right? The idea. Oh, I immediately went like, "Hey, we should play a game. You should come run you should play online. It'd be greater, because I'm like just trying to expand that player pool and making sure that anybody that has that interest, if they run by me and say, "Oh, I wish I could play, but I can never find anybody to play with," it's my mission to make that not happen. I want everybody to be able to play.
Well, as far as me, I'm trying to think. I think it was it was 2 weeks ago that I played my home game with my friends at the table, and I don't think I talked about that, right? Because that's what I would have talked about last week, and I wasn't here. So I was trying to remember what happened, and they went into they were at, I think where we left off is they were in front of a Yuan-Ti temple, and there was some Yuan-Ti guards, and they were basically trying to get into this temple to see what's going on. The Yuan-Ti guards were not having it and were saying like they're going to interrupt the ritual and don't let them, and so they attacked, but it was only 2 Yuan-Ti, and so they kind of took them out pretty easily. And then they started asking the NPC questions. They're just like, why are these Yuan-Ti attacking me? And in my world, I guess, in the Forgotten Realms-esque world that I'm playing in, I decided that the Yuan-Ti were kind of like lepers almost. Like they're in the city, but people stay away from them because they don't want to catch snakeness. Like they don't want to turn into a snake. But the Yuan-Ti feel that they are entitled, I guess, to the world because they think they're better than the regular people because they have this snakeification going on. And so in the Yuan-Ti culture, the more snake-like you are, the more the higher up you are in the hierarchy. And so in town, there's Yuan-Ti that have like maybe some scales on their shoulders and snake eyes. But outside of town, like in this temple that they found, there are Yuan-Ti that are like got full snake heads or full snake bodies. So again, this is just like information dump, I guess, like lore dump. But the Yuan-Ti, there is a dig site in the world that I want my players to go to at some point. And what it is there's an inverted pyramid under the ground, like in the sand.
I love inverted pyramids.
How it got there, like they don't know, but it's this inverted pyramid, and they're digging it up. Well, the Yuan-Ti feel that it is their inverted pyramid, like that should be theirs because the pharaoh or the king that ruled it has a tie to the Yuan-Ti, and some of the Yuan-Ti came from experiments that like mad wizard was doing. So they feel like it's their property, so they've been attacking this dig site. And the NPC that is with my players was sent to the temple to try and like negotiate a peace between them. And if that negotiation doesn't happen, he was there to basically try and put an end to these attacks from the Yuan-Ti. So my players say, we want to talk with the head honcho. We'll see what's going on. So they go inside, and inside is a young adult blue dragon that the Yuan-Ti have captured and have conditioned in such a way. They've poisoned it and give pain and like beat it and stuff. And they've kind of conditioned it so that it hates everything. And the Yuan-Ti get in a fight with my players and they release the dragon. And so I was rolling randomly to see who the dragon was going to attack, whether it was my players or the Yuan-Ti. And he attacked the Yuan-Ti a couple times. He attacked my players a couple times until the cleric cast the command word on it, or the command spell saying, help us, basically, attack the Yuan-Ti. So this dragon, now compelled to help, like ran around and helped them. So I wasn't expecting that. And they kind of mopped up this entire fight really easy because they had a young adult blue dragon on their side. We go into the main room where this like huge fight's supposed to happen against an Yuan-Ti anathema, I think is what it's called. It's this like six-headed snake. It's got like a snake body with like 6 snake heads and 2 really creepy hands for slashing and stuff. It's a really cool monster in Volo's Guide to Monsters, and I was really excited to use it. So they try to have a negotiation, but the negotiation goes south. And I was like, man, I got to get rid of this dragon though. Like, how can I get rid of this dragon so that it's not like a pushover fight? Like I wanted this to be a difficult fight. So in the moment I was thinking, oh, they've like conditioned this dragon. What if she has like a command word that then reverts the dragon into mind control? So I had her utter a spell, and you just saw everybody at the table facepalm because they brought this dragon in with them when they could have let it go. And they were like, well, that was really dumb. So now they have to fight this Yuan-Ti anathema, some like minions, and a young adult blue dragon not flying around because they were indoors, but like doing all kinds of lightning
still
breath and
bad.
stuff. Yeah, it was really bad. Sorry, I'm trying to rethink what happened. The cleric said, well, is my command spell still working? And so basically I said, your command spell and the conditioning from the Yuan-Ti are in conflict. So we rolled to see who he would attack again at the beginning of each round. And he was actually attacking my players. So it was really dire. And not to like bore you guys with like a long fight, because it was a really long fight, but you were talking about how your players were breathing heavy at the end of that last session. And this was the first time in quite a while that I felt like I challenged my players. Like all of a sudden they were just like, we didn't know if we were going to survive that. And they almost didn't. And some of them, I think the paladin went down twice. And they had to like heal him to get him back up. And then she would just go back down again. It was a really fun, epic fight. But they won, and they're now sitting in the middle of this temple, and they have like probably another 60% of it to explore. But that was the major fight, so the rest of it won't be as difficult. But I've been really picky about giving them long rests and short rests. And if they want to take a short rest, then that's fine. But there are consequences, like people might walk in on them, you might not get your full short rest. And so they've been really careful about like, well, should we take one? Should we not take one? And that's made the game a little bit more fun, because I think it's really easy to have a big fight and then say, okay, you guys can just rest. But I've been a stickler saying like, well, that big fight, yes, you're hurt, but it's only like 10 in the morning. Like you guys can't just take a long rest. If you want to take a short rest, you can, and there's consequences for that. So
in the middle of the temple.
In the middle of the temple with like other enemies around. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for sure.
The first question that would come to my mind would be, from your players, did they ask you, can we chop up the blue dragon's parts and can we sell them or use them in spells?
Oh,
that was the first thing my characters asked me once they defeated a young dragon. They were like, can we use the teeth and can we use all this other stuff?
Yeah.
I was like, we all know you're supposed to get a lot of money for dragon scales and dragon this and
when they fought a giant purple worm, I had them roll like a nature check to see if they would get some information about like, this is actually worth some money. Like if they could milk the venom of a purple worm, like it's worth, or not the venom, but the acid, I guess, like it's worth some money. But they all rolled really low. So they didn't clue into that. But I was kind of hoping that some of them would be like, well, can we like scavenge this thing for parts? Like how strong are these scales? Could I make a shield from its scales? Because crafting's fun. And it's kind of fun to have this extra stuff, but especially the acid. I was like, that would have been really useful for you guys getting through locks. Like, acid's just useful in general. So it was really fun. I liked that I was able to challenge my players again. So yeah, they, and ultimately the dragon, they didn't defeat it. They, her command word spell like overtook it, and she commanded it to run away. Because they were like, we can't control it anymore. So the minute she had control, she told it to just like run away. And it did. It was like, I'm out of here. Cause it wanted to escape from the get go. But it was conditioned to fight and stay because of the Yuan-Ti. It's really fun. It was cool. An awesome game. And then that was it. And then I had to run to California to do a bunch of stuff. But I did want to talk before we end. Do you watch Acquisitions Incorporated? Did you watch the PAX East game?
I'm still watching some episodes before I get to the PAX East game. So no, I've not watched that one yet.
So I started playing Dungeons and Dragons because of Acquisitions Incorporated. Like I listened to the podcast and Chris Perkins DMing, and I was just like, this looks really fun. Like I want to do this. I want to try this. So good job, Wizards of the Coast. Your marketing totally worked. And now I run a D&D Saturday morning show. So we've all come full circle. I'm helping Wizards of the Coast out now, but, it was really awesome. Mike Krahulik, who's Gabe from Penny Arcade, he ran the game, and he had a really great article on Wednesday on Penny Arcade. So if you go to Penny Arcade and go back a day or go back a thing, cause they release Monday, Wednesday, Friday, on Wednesday, he had a really great article about what he loves about D&D. And he loves that the rules are so, I think he described them as like taffy or elastic. Like they're so malleable that you can take other things like concepts from video games and put them into Dungeons and Dragons, and it works. So for this game, instead of Players Unknown Battlegrounds, PUBG, which is a popular video game right now, he did Wizards Unknown Battlegrounds, and he created these deck of cards that the players land on this island, just like in PUBG, and then the circle of influence around the island gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's basically causing them to fight the other players that are on this island. And he had this whole system for every time you wanted to move, every time you wanted to search, every time you wanted to do something, you would draw randomly from this deck that would have all these random things that could happen. And they were really creative because some of them were attack this thing or fight this thing, but some of them were, here's a blessing of unicorns that just showed up. You have to use animal handling checks to get past these unicorns, and so they had to utilize different skills to bypass certain challenges. And it's always funny. Like I love the Acquisitions Incorporated games, and Holly Conrad was in this one, and she is just becoming my new favorite person more and more. She's just fun to watch, and Strix is a great character. And I loved it. Like, it was awesome. Although I did fall asleep last night because I think after driving 9 hours and then trying to watch that, and then I just conked out. So I'm gonna catch the ending, the true ending, because I woke up when they were like at the very end of it. But I was like, oh crap, I missed it. I've got to go to bed. But
in season 1 of their C Team that they did, because I'm really digging C Team a lot.
It's good.
That crew that. Watch Jerry. He's my kind of DM. He's the guy I want to play in a game with for sure.
Yeah.
But there was one night that he brought in Jim, Dark Magic, Krahulik, to run a game. And so they run a mini adventure for C Team, and he builds a Mario Kart race board.
Yeah.
Builds rules, forces them to go through this whole thing in super creative way to play a one-off D&D session. That was really funny and really interesting, and they were using these weird abilities that they were trying to race around and be the winner, and it was just really cool to see. I like the idea that he's pushing forward, and like you said, bring us full circle back to the article. The idea that there is D&D, and you have standard D&D, and you have the standard games that you hear about or see, but it's still a strong enough platform that you can do some really crazy stuff with it. The framework of the rules allow you to turn it into so many different things. Like, you can do a PUBG game, you can do an anime show, you can do ship battles and racing
games. You're talking about your Groundhog's Day idea that you want to do. Like it's this beautiful framework that allows you to kind of, which I've told people before that I was like, when I finally became a DM, it's such a creative process. Like if you're in a funk where you're just like, I don't feel creative and I don't feel like, I don't know, whenever I don't feel creative, I don't feel smart. But Dungeons and Dragons makes me like, that was a really cool idea, or this was really fun. So I was going to ask you, is there any like video game things that you have ever, or other things like that you've taken and put it into some of your games before?
I have some ideas that I want to do. Yeah. I've not done them yet. Like, I've been thinking about them. The only thing that kind of comes,
and I don't really have a good answer for this either. I was racking my brain this morning and last night. I'm like, I want to talk about this, but have I ever done that? And now I want to do it more. Like, I want to take like video game concepts, I guess, or just something that I've been reading lately and try to incorporate it into my games.
The one thing I can think of is I ran a game based on, it's going to seem stupid to say, but there's an anime I watched which has the funniest name to me, which was Is It Bad to Meet Girls in the Dungeon? And it's based on a very Dungeons and Dragons like world where this whole town has all these adventurers, and every morning the temple doors open to this great big giant super dungeon, and they go in and they come back out and they bring whatever stuff they get out, and it's just the storyline that's based on that, and it's in the character. But in it, they had this thing that just caught my eye that I thought was the coolest thing I had seen when it talked about how do they deal with the character. Because they talk in a very meta sense of, you're a level 4 fighter. Yeah. You're a level 3 wizard, and these are the abilities you get. And the way they described that is the guilds are run by gods who have descended to Earth, and you join one of them. And then when you go in, you get experience, and you come back out, you go to your god, and your god finds out what kind of new abilities you've got or what level you are by casting a spell. And then on your back is a tattoo of your character sheet. And the spell changes it whenever you get XP. So like this character that you meet up with, he gets to level 2 or whatever, and he gets his new ability, which is he can throw a firebolt. You know, that's his new ability, or he gets some other new ability. And I thought that concept was super cool. So I have ran a game that I called Hestia, because Hestia is one of the gods in the thing. And I ran my players, and I said, we're going to play D&D once you show up on Tuesday night or whatever night it was. And they're like, oh, okay, so what levels are we playing? What characters, what races can we do? I said, don't do any of that. Just show up. No character creation. You're going to show up. I started the game. They had no character sheets, blank. All I said is, what's your name? We went through. And what I did is we went through a role play session of them not being characters at all, just regular old young farmers and hooligans and whatever. And then they decide they want to be adventurers. They are told that the only way they can become adventurers and get a writ to go and do this is if they sign on one of the guilds. They go find this goddess who will accept them into their guild, and she performs the spell. And I create this ritual of kind of like wordplay games where it was like, okay, this thing's happening. You have this memory happening. What's the first thing that pops into your mind? And I say, and I just start shouting words out like, dagger, bow, spell, something, something, something. They have to answer really quickly. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I write that down, and I'm like, okay, what's this next thing? What's this next thing? And it forms the character that they get randomly that they're going to play off of this weird word association thing I came. And then I described it as this tattoo being displayed on their back as into, this is the character that you are.
Yeah.
You know, and so that was taking it from something that had really grabbed my attention and said, I want to put this into a Dungeons and Dragons 5e game, but how do I do that? How do I put in this weird, you don't get your abilities or skills until this happens. I don't want you to spend 2 days building your character and coming up with your own backstory. I want it to happen to you in the game in a role play session. So that's about as close as I've gotten.
Yeah, my wife really loves Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario World. She just likes Mario a whole bunch in those old Nintendo and Super Nintendo games. So when we first started playing, I thought it would be really fun to make some magic items based on that. So I made a mushroom that if you ate, you got the enlarge spell put on you. And I made a flower that cast burning hands. And I made a fragment of a star that would make you invulnerable for a minute, you know? And
Nice.
it was funny how excited I was about that. And then when I actually put them in the games, nobody clued in that it was Super Mario Brothers. And I'm like, are you guys kidding me? It's a mushroom that makes you bigger. Like, focus. But she has a bunch of, sometimes I'll say like, oh, you guys are fighting this. And she's like, oh, is it like this thing from Yoshi's Island 2 where I have to like throw the eggs or whatever? And so I've been racking my brain ever since I watched Acquisitions Incorporated last night. And this morning I was thinking about it. I'm like, I really need to figure out a way for her like boss battle knowledge of Yoshi's Island 2 to be relevant to a D&D game so that she could feel like
funny.
special and have like, oh my gosh, guys, I know how to take care of this boss. Like I know his one weakness. So I think that's what I'm going to try and do is incorporate some of those fights and see if I can make them work in my game. Like maybe I think there's a monster in Yoshi's Island 2 or a boss where the more you attack it, the bigger it gets. So maybe I'll do like they're attacking like a slime or something, and the slime just kind of gets bigger and bigger and fills up the room, and they have to figure out like, well, what do we do now? Like it's easy to hit. It's got an AC of 3, but his hit points are doubling every single time we like seem to like do damage to it. So
Yeah, that and now you just reminded me. I did that in a Numenera campaign I ran.
oh really?
I wanted to do the MMO boss fight, right? So I created a creature. Didn't really. It looked like a displacer beast, but a little bit cooler, bigger one that they were fighting. And in my brain, I set up this at 3/4 health, it changes modes.
Yeah.
And then at half health, it changes modes. And then at 1/4 health, it goes into like super beast mode. And so it was changing what it was doing. And I was doing all of the tells that would let the players know something's about to happen. So like it was setting up this whole thing where they knew when to hide behind columns because a big AoE blast was going to happen, or a big stomp, or something would change and they knew it was about to leap, so they could, the next turn it was going to do a leap, and it was always doing something bigger, badder, and telegraphing it enough that if they were paying attention they could do something, all based off of me thinking about MMO boss battles and saying, how do you put that into a game? I did do it in my Numenera game, and they had a lot of fun with it because the boss goes from, okay, it's going pretty good. Oh crap, now he's way tougher. Oh my god, he's super tough. How are we ever going to get this? So it was a fun battle, but those did take a lot longer. Just in case you're thinking about doing that, that battle took an hour.
It's fun.
Or
It remind like a couple of April Fool's days ago, like 2 years ago, I did, or just a year ago. I did an April Fool's video where I was dressed up like Matt Colville and I was giving advice in a Matt Colville way. And I was talking about parity in your games. And that's kind of what I'm talking about now, where if your players have that knowledge of a certain video game or a certain MMO or something like that, you can, like PUBG, like they all know PUBG, they all play PUBG. If you can incorporate that into a game so they can use their meta knowledge and play in this game they're kind of familiar with, that's really fun for a player and can be really creative for a dungeon master. So yeah,
definitely. That's really good. That's
yeah,
funny.
it's fun.
I
highly recommend you guys watch that. You don't have to have previous Acquisitions Incorporated knowledge, but to just watch the mechanics of the game. And I'll put links in the doobly-doo for the YouTube version, but it's super fun. Yeah, it's like 10:50. I don't know. Do you want to? Do you got anything else you want to talk about? Or
well, the only thing I've got going on tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to be going and sitting at a table and rolling authentic dice because I got invited to play in a game with. Apparently, they're in the middle of a dragon who owns a casino, and they're going to try to Ocean's 11 it. And so I was like, okay. Here we go.
I love everything about this. That's amazing.
And they're like, we need a good thief. So they were like, what level do I get to be? So I made up what I'm calling a shadow thief.
Okay.
And it's a level 1 thief, level 3 shadow sorcerer.
Okay.
So it has some cool mechanics. All the spells are around breaking in, dealing with guards, sneaking in, sneaking out, all that stuff. No damage spells at all. It's all about darkness and invisibility and spider climb and
sleep,
sleep guards, and it's like all this stuff about being the great heist kind of guy. And so I think this is going to turn out to be really fun to play. So that's going to be cool. I might get to play that, and I'm sure next week Saturday when we talk about it, I'll have a bunch to tell you about that.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, I'm going to be setting up that game with Cyberwolf.
Yeah.
Setting up some players. I think I'm going to do a very interesting game mode like we just talked about. Another anime I've been watching is called Black Clover. And this one is a really cool, it's set up on the 4 suits. So each of the kingdoms is the Clover Kingdom, the Heart Kingdom, the Diamond Kingdom, and the clovers and the diamonds are right next to each other, and they have like a little barrier where they're always fighting with each other. But what it is everybody's magical, everybody's a mage of some sort. But when you come of age, you go and you go to the ceremony, and you go into this great big library, and this big thing happens, and one of the great tomes, one of the grimoires, will come and seek you out, and it becomes yours. Like it just attaches to you, and that's your type of magic now. So like maybe you have chain magic, or you have light magic, or you have water magic that's based on something. There's like all these cool things. And I think I want to run a game that's based on that. These characters, they go into their initiation, this book comes to them, and now their magic is formed by this cool magic, like whatever it happens to be. And I think it's going to be really fun. So I think it'll be a good adventure. Yeah. And I'll stream all that. I'll put it on, and I will probably also stream or at least put up a YouTube video of the creation of how I'm going to do it. So like from the moment of setting up Roll20, what maps I'm going to put in, how I'm going to build the maps, how I'm going to build that stuff, what I come up with. I'll probably build all that so people can watch, my method of putting together a strange one-shot campaign of some sort. So,
no, that sounds awesome. I love watching how DMs kind of create stuff. It's fun.
Yeah.
So,
all right. I think that's for me.
Yeah.
It's been an awesome show.
Thanks, guys, for watching. And thanks so much for all of the thoughts and prayers and stuff. I think everything's going to be good. We just got to You just got to wait until people get better. So, but they will. It's going to be awesome. And you guys are just super fun. I'm looking over at chat, and it's just really great, awesome people. So thank you guys so much for coming out and watching. And we will be back next Saturday with another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. Lucian's got loads of other content, so try and check those out. And I will have a new video this Wednesday that I'm going to start working on immediately after we finish this, because I have a video to make. But I'll have a new video on Wednesday. And yeah, with that, we will see you next Saturday. Bye, everybody.
Bye.